Hey guys, I'm back in Iowa, back here with my boy Chad Daddy, editing away. As some of you may or may not know, we picked up a location in Florida so that we could start testing some new parts. I'm not sure how familiar you are with Iowa, but it's frigid. The tracks are closed, so we can't test parts. We don't have an in-house dyno cell or anything. This video has some cool Blazer updates as well as some stuff around the shop. So some of you may recognize this, my daily driver Nova. It's looking a little empty in the engine bay. There'll be some videos coming out about that. Old Bald Regal's not looking so hot, but she is on the mends. We're getting ready to toss some new parts on her and get her ready for the next competition. We're assessing the damage. We'll make moves. This is one of my projects at night this week, and in the afternoons I'm going to start building the twin turbo kit for Brian's big yellow banana Blazer Extreme. This thing's so cool. We're gonna see it on race week hopefully this year. I don't know, it's a tall order to get it done in time, but we'll see what we can do. But I'm gonna show you guys just how cold it is out here. We got a ton of ice. Here's all our R&D cars. My boy Wally's out here. Everything's just plain frozen. I'm actually walking on top of the snow right now. Oh my gosh, this thing is so frozen. I think I might try and see if we can start it. If I can get the charger on the battery, I think. Oh yeah. In one of our previous escapades, we sprayed a lot of nitrous through. I think it was in one of the videos, and we're pretty sure he developed a little bit of a lower end rod knock. So let's check on it because we need to start making plans for race week. I don't know if you guys saw, but we are the title sponsors, presenting sponsor for both Rocky Mountain Race Week and Race Week 2.0. So it's gonna be a really exciting year of street car stuff. Found the key. Nice. Found the key, Brian.
Well, let's start though.
Brian's making fun of my 3 extension cords tied together. I'm not sure if that's OSHA approved. Will it start? Who thinks it's gonna start?
I don't think it's gonna start.
The motor's like completely frozen, dude. It's so nuts. It's gonna be interesting. Might need a new engine after this situation. Oh, she's real dead. Maybe see if you can wiggle the terminals a little bit.
It's all right.
Maybe the battery's like dead.
She might take a while. Nothing? Just let her sit.
Poor Wally's frozen over. Oh no.
Dude, what are we gonna do with this engine? If it starts, that really proves the ability of a mod motor 2-valve deal. Go eat some lunch, come back. No extension cords have melted yet, so that's great.
Well, that's good news. Ryan's gonna biff it.
He's gonna have workman's comp injury here shortly. Alright.
Here we go. Oh!
The throttle cable's stuck, it won't rev up.
Woo!
I've never seen anything like this before. We've got no movement out of the elevator here.
Oh,
It wouldn't rev up. I think the tensioner's frozen.
There's trying to go.
Frozen.
There we go.
Oh, it's coming back to life.
Oh, it's a dream.
What a wiring job of this.
We're back.
We're gonna go refill the nitrous bottle here. That's impressive that it started that easy. Probably a blown head gasket or something. It smells a little hot. Woo! Well, a couple more nitrous burnouts left on this before we start our next build. Alright guys, so fabrication starts now on Brian's Blazer. He asked me to help him build a set of turbo headers. Typically when we do turbo setups, it's nice to have 2 people around. Brian and I usually work together. He's got a good eye for that stuff, and I can weld, so it's a perfect match. We're gonna go ahead and get the turbos unboxed. We're switching over to V-band housings. I think it adds a little less complexity to things because you can run the piping right into the V-bands rather than having to go to a transition form type of T4 flange. They're a little bit lighter, and overall that's what Brian wanted on this thing. He's very much detail oriented. One thing I like to do on turbo builds is I like to make sure that the radiator is always mounted with a fan, and that overall your accessories are all ready to go. We're gonna mount the alternator low on the passenger side here, so we're not worried about that. Everything else is basically ready to go, and we can work around things. The reason why I always want to have the radiator and fans there is because a lot of people don't put those in, and you always wish you did, because things get real small real quick. We're going to go ahead and start kind of taking the turbo and just seeing where it fits. Remember, we're running 2 on here, so we got to have room for both, and then just figuring out what routing we can take for the downpipes, where Brian wants to have them come out at, and then start building headers from there. For turbos, we chose the LS 7675 cast wheel turbos. This thing is going to have a 388 cubic inch LS motor in it with really good flowing heads. So we know that's a really good combo turbo wise for a 388, because that's what we run on a Nova. But we wanted to learn, you know, how good these turbos really are as a pair. We know they'll make a lot of power, but how much power will they make? So what better way to find out than to do it on our own setup, so we can show you guys firsthand how powerful that combo can be. So this is a box stock turbine housing. These are actually off of a Gen 2 turbo that we had. They don't actually sell these with this turbo out of the box, so we're just swapping them on there. So gonna unbolt this, switch over to this, and then we can take them over there and start laying them out. If you've ever worked with an S10 before, you know how small the front ends can be. The steering's always in the way, so they require custom header a lot of times, especially if you want to do things a certain way. So we are enlisting the help of the Ice Engine Works. They kind of look like Legos, but these things are awesome. I started using these about 3 or 4 sets of headers ago, and I'll show you along the way how they work. But they basically give you the ability to build 1 tube at a time, start a collector where you want it to be. You can make all your mistakes by clipping together plastic the wrong way rather than cutting tubes and having, you know, those just aren't, they're expensive. So it saves you a ton of tubes, it saves you a ton of mistake, ton of fabrication and cutting time. It really makes headers turn out like the next level quality. Some people have a really good eye for it, but if I had to guess, they still have a lot of scrap bends and cuts and stuff like that. You'll still have a few here and there, but it is a really slick system, and I think it really is going to make these headers come together really quick. We use them on my Nova, Andy's GTO, the Blue Mule, and several other builds. So one thing I always like to do is have your radiator mounted, like I said before in the video. That way you can kind of get an idea where everything's going to be. It's a lot harder to squeeze a radiator in afterwards than it is before. So Brian's got his turb ski. I talked about in a Tech Tip Tuesday video recently how nice it is to have weight low versus high. We could easily put these turbos up here, but we're actually going to put them down low. Our concept, we got the first pipe here, is to have the collector kind of come out like this. That'll give us a nice quick little 180 pipe. So we cut the first tube already. So we're going to have the collector kind of come out a little bit angled like that maybe. And then the pipe going into the hot side of the turbo will be just kind of like a little U shape, and that'll give us a nice flow to get the wastegates off of the top of that, and then we'll just follow the downpipes out and have the wastegates dump at the same place as the downpipes. So should we start tacking, Brian?
Let's do it.
The hardest thing about building a turbo setup is getting started. I always like to leave the turbo free and not solid mount it until after I start the collector and stuff. So what I'll do is I'll build the first tube in the area that I want to build it, and I'll leave the turbo loose. That way we, you know, as things warp and move, as you start tacking up, and you might have to move it as a whole later, you're not kind of painted into a corner. So we're gonna get this first, we're gonna hold the turbo up, figure out where, you know, relation where we want it to be, get the collector right, we'll tack that first primary, and that'll kind of give us something to start building backwards off of, and then we'll build the rest of the tubes. Once we get those all done, welded, tacked, then we'll solid mount the turbo and build the hot side into the turbo from the collector. So I like to do a little cross hash marking. That'll usually get you might be able to see that, you might not be able to. That gets you your orientation and the tube depth as you go. We got it tacked to the header flange out of the Motion Raceworks LS header kits, and we got it tacked to the collector. We're actually not going to put a V-band on this, we're just going to put the tube right over, and it's going to have a V-band right on that, so there's going to be no intermediate pipe, it's all going to be one piece. But now that we have this all solidly mounted, it's really not going anywhere, we can take our Legos, or also known as the ice engine kit, and start building up to it. As you can see, we have a pretty complex little primary coming around that steering box there, so that's going to be a little bit tricky, but now that everything's kind of going to stay in place for the most part, we can really get to work on the rest of it, and you'll see it all come together here. So one of the cool things is there's 3-inch centerline radius and there's 2-inch centerline radius for this 1 3/4 kit, and then there's straights. So in our kits, in our header kits, we have 2-inch and 3-inch. We have 4 of each, and both give you a little bit different ability to put things together. So all you basically do is clip these pieces together, and these arrows, if they're all lined up, you can just kind of make take an entire U, make it however you want. Obviously on one side you can have a flat, and then the other side you can have bends, and you just kind of make combinations that work, and go from there. And then as you go, you can actually twist them back and forth, and these little dots help you kind of align things, and then that'll also allow you to kind of get reference points, and we'll show you a little bit more of that as we go. So one of the most confusing parts about building the headers is which primary goes where, especially if it's your first or second set of headers. So these pieces allow you to kind of lay out which goes where and how you want them to lay out. As you can see, if you were to just cut a piece of metal right there, that wasn't going to work out, so we're going to have to change up a couple things and go from there. So now that we have the first side done, we'll go ahead and try our best to mirror it on the passenger side, get that first primary tacked up, and then once that's done, then we'll come back and start remaking all the Lego pieces into actual header tubes, and then we'll start welding. All right guys, we're back for day 2 of the build. Today we're gonna start making tubes. So I'm gonna take you over to our shop and show you the little cut fixture that comes with this ice kit. It's super helpful, and you'll kind of get a better understanding of why it's so easy. When I first saw this kit and I saw these pieces, I'm like, great, it's cool that you can make them out of them, but it doesn't really do anything for me. But then once you understand how the kit works, and then how the cut fixture works in relation to standard 2 and 3-inch centerline bends, it really opens up your mind to how easy this really is and how reproducible these things really make your design that you just laid out. Let's head over there and see what we got. You don't like working Saturdays, Leonard? Alright guys, so this is a cut fixture. It comes as a flat plate with these little dies. This is a 2-inch die and this is a 3-inch die. You can see I have a couple of my bends laid out here. We actually added on this little keyway so that it slides on our table. And that makes it pretty much foolproof. You just basically push this through. This one's got a straight and 3 bends. So obviously we can't have a straight and 3 bends on each side unless we had the correct style 90, which we don't. So we'll take this and we'll put it right here. You're going to loosen this little wing nut, and you can kind of feel it'll just kind of seat itself on here. You're going to just rotate it to the point where it's going to go through the blade. You're basically going to flatten this out against the blade so that you pretty much mimic what the tube is going to do when you go to cut it. And then what you do is you tighten this, take your 2-inch tube, put it on here, push it through, and then you'll cut the leg off later, and that basically allows you to mimic that exact. So whether it has 4 of those bends or 5, you know, you can rotate this and make it land exactly how it needs to, so that you pretty much mirror that. A lot of times you'll see a lot of little marks on here if there's multiple compound bends. I'll put some black marking line so I can line it back up afterwards, but this was just a straight on one side and straight on the other side. So once we get this cut, all we'll have to do is recreate this straight and it'll be done. So let's go ahead and get it cut and move on to the next part. So of course we probably have the dullest blade known to man, but now you can see that this lines up perfectly. So now all we have to do is mark this piece right here. We'll chop that leg off, and then we'll take and add this leg to this side, tack weld it on there, and we should have one primary completely done. And then we'll move on to this one. This one's got a few this actually has, this is gonna have 3 pieces that need to be welded together. One small section here and 2 others. So you can kind of see how once you start breaking this down into sections, it's very easy to cut them, come back and tack them together and build your header without much guesswork. So I marked that leg. I actually like to use this horizontal bandsaw for cutting straights. It just does a lot better job of it and you don't really have to work very hard. A couple tips to this. If you have a short piece, sometimes the vise wants to kink one way or another. So I always add another cut piece that I had left over, and that'll basically keep the vise square. And then what gets a lot of people into trouble when they are fabricating is they'll draw a Sharpie line. The Sharpie line can actually be pretty thick, and it can really throw you off on a whole, a stack up of different cut pieces. So I always take and put an arrow on the direction of what side I want to be flush. That way, you can miss by a 32nd or a 16th either way, especially how sharp your Sharpie line is. So just a little tip for you guys in the middle of all this. I'll actually come over here to this belt sander. Don't mind that belt, it's had a lot of use this week. And then we'll come over here and file it out. So since I don't have a long enough pipe, I'm actually going to have to use 2 pieces of pipe, which sometimes gives you a little bit of flexibility when you're trying to line everything up down the road. So with the knowledge of how this all fits, you can actually feel comfortable in just building all the different primaries right now. When I do that, I'll actually just label them what number they are, because it's easy to forget by the time you go to put it on the car. So I got 5, I got 7. I'm not going to do 3 yet until we get these exactly how we want them. And then I'll come back and build the number 3 primary, and we'll tack it all together. So we got just those pieces tacked up on here, and literally with no modification, we're just dropping them right in. You want to check and make sure you have enough depth in the collector. This one comes in a little bit far, but we'll be able to chop that off afterwards. And then you also want to make sure that they go deep enough into the flange. I always weld my headers on the back side of the flange versus the front side. It's just easier. Kind of avoids them warping when you're welding them. Just looks a lot cleaner that way. And they hold up just fine. Plus it kind of creates like a nice transition as the air comes into the header. It's kind of going off that smooth weld rather than hitting edges where the pipes are. That one looks like it has plenty of depth in there.
Yeah, that's really good.
So it sticks into the flange that much, so that's perfect. Now we'll go back and we'll do that 3rd one, which is going to be a little bit more tricky one, but we wanted to make sure we had a good solid start with the number 7, 5, and then obviously we started with the 1. All right, so one little tip I'll show you guys, don't mind my cut finger here. When I'm marking stuff or when we're building pipes, I always like to put 3 marks, 2 or 3 marks, and that kind of gives you an alignment for a rotation. So you'll see that we have, when everything's squared up, you put the rotation marks, and then you can actually tack stuff on a table and get it dead accurate to put it back on the car. So that's like one step further. Once these pieces are done, hold them back up, make your hash marks, come back, tack them up, put them back on the vehicle, and you're good to go. Last piece. I'm sure it'll go in terribly.
Let's take this one out first.
Okay. Sometimes you just got to fight it a little bit, but we finally got that number 3 primary into the collector. Everything looks really good. And basically, if you missed it before, we're just gonna have a 180 that comes down into the turbo. One thing that has changed since the beginning of the build, so like less than 24 hours, is we decided we're gonna do some mirror image turbos. With things as tight as they are here, and Brian's a very detail-oriented person, he couldn't live with himself not having mirror image. And we were actually able to get the headers to pretty much lay out identical from side to side, and everything's gonna clear really well. Just the next step in making it really perfect in his mind and just symmetrically is to have mirror image. So we'll have a 180 degree coming off of this one. We started this one, we'll have a 180 degree coming off of this one. We'll make the wastegates look similar. I'd say very pleasing to the eye, very satisfying. We're gonna go ahead and tack all of the primary tubes to both the header flange as well as to the collector. And then we're gonna start on the other side, see how far we can get today. All right guys, so honestly, we just took the same orange tubes over and reversed them for over here. It's pretty much an identical, symmetrical type of thing. We're ready to rock and roll and just do this last tube, and then we'll be done. This one's completely tacked up, so it's strong and ready to build off of. We'll probably end up taking this one off, fully welding it, actually both of them off, fully welding it before we build the rest of it, just in case things move a little bit. That's how I like to do things. We're just gonna go ahead and get some orange pieces going on this and see if we can make it look just like that on the other side, and go from there. We got this second side done. We just need to finish tacking up the collector and the flange, and that's it. I'll typically use a 1/32 stainless rod. I've used thinner before, and if you have really tight gaps, that's fine. But like collector to header tube, header flange to tube, you definitely want that like 1/32. And then if you want like tube to tube, you can go like an 045 wire, an 035 wire. That's not a problem at all. And then on the actual welder, I'll typically do no pulse when I'm doing the thin header tubes to each other. I'll do like 61, 62 amps. Then you can just, floor the pedal. The collectors also I'll do about 62 amps. That gives you a little bit of time to really kind of move that puddle around. When I do the flange to the actual tubes, I'll turn it up to about 100 and 102 amps. That is a good balance between the thin tube not melting through, also being able to melt the thick header flanges. And then also when I'm tacking up header tubes, I always turn on my post flow to like 3 to 5 seconds. That way, if for some reason I'm on the tack a little bit longer, I can really cool it off in a good environment so it keeps the color that you want. A few tips I've learned along the way. I'm sure other people have different settings and different preferences, and I don't use a pulse when I'm doing any of that stuff. Hopefully that helps you guys and gives you some settings to baseline with and get started on your own headers. We have these header builder kits in stock for all kinds of stuff, from small block Ford to Gen 3 Hemi, LS, LT, Coyote, big block Chevy, tons of stuff. This is the exact same kit that I used on this. It comes with everything you need to build this in a few hours or a weekend or whatever with a buddy, and it makes it really easy so you're not shopping around for all the bends and pieces and stuff like that. Definitely same pieces we use here is what we sell. That's kind of our whole goal when we're building a car, not only to develop, but to understand if what we sell is good enough to accomplish what we're doing here. I really hope that you kind of understand how those little ice engine Lego block things work. They're really handy. If you have that cut fixture and you have a bandsaw and you have those, it's about as simple as it gets. More than anything, it saves a lot of wasted material and a lot of wasted time. It's about 1:55 on a Saturday. We started at 9, so it really didn't take that long. And that was mainly just me going back and forth, and then I'd had a hand tacking things up. The other stuff will have to wait. We need to finish weld these, and then we can finish building the, I guess the pipe into the turbos on the hot side, and then the wastegate merges and all stuff, but that'll have to wait for another day. We're kind of out of time. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you guys enjoyed it. More of the Extreme Blazer to come, more of the Bald Eagle, more of the Nova. It's wintertime, it's build season. We're here rocking out. We'll see you guys later. Thanks.